All right, trying a little something new here with my new camera setup. We're going to go ahead and get into the Word. This is Hebrews 12:14. So it says here in 12:14, make every effort to live in peace with all men and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. So we live in a day and age where everyone wants to point out the differences, whether or not it's the color of our skin, our religion, our politics, everything that we can possibly imagine. We want to point out the differences. And as little kids, I know in school, as soon as you meet somebody who is a little different than the norm, that kid is generally picked on, bullied, whatever word you want to use, and they feel ostracized. And, things progress from there sometimes. But the problem is instead of looking at the things that make us different, which sometimes those things are important, but how about let's look at the things that make us similar? Case in point. So if you've ever met somebody from a different country and you love food and they love food, I can guarantee you that if you have a conversation about food and if that falls apart, you're in trouble. Because most people love to talk about food. And generally, if you live in the South, like we live in the southern part of America, if you talk about football, you don't even have to be the biggest fan of football. The other day, I was pumping gas. There was a guy with an OU shirt on, or OU hat, whatever. And I said, something to the effect is, how's OU doing? And man, it brightened his day. He got to talk about OU for just a couple minutes. I don't care about OU that much. If OU wins, great. If OU loses, no big deal. You don't have to be phony, but you can just care about people. And you can talk about the things that you guys like. If they're an OSU fan, you both like football. OSU is in Oklahoma State University, not Ohio State University. But like I said, you don't have to both like the same team. If you both like football, you can talk about football. If you both like music, man, when I meet somebody who is a musician, we can talk about music all day long. Politics doesn't have to come into the equation. Even religion doesn't have to come into the equation. If that person's not very religious, they probably don't want to talk about religion. If you meet someone who loves religion, loves political discussions, then maybe you can have those kinds of conversations. But instead, how about find the things that we have in common? Talk about the things we have in common. Break bread and eat with each other. I was working at a location for a while, and there was a guy there. We probably had like 2 to 5% of stuff in common. We were both guys. We both liked food. And we broke bread together almost every day. And we talked. We just talked about food. Sometimes we talked a little bit about sports. Sometimes we talked a little bit about our jobs or whatever. But find those things that you like and talk about them with people instead of the things that make us all so different, And I'm not saying you can't talk about where you're from or, who you like and who you don't like. But sometimes you get into politics, you get into talking about all kinds of social issues that bring up anxiety, and people just don't want to talk about that a lot of times, unless they're online and they just like to cause everybody else to stress out. How about let's find the things that we can all agree on and talk about those things. And I'm not saying you can't have a hard conversation with somebody, but most likely the person that you're pumping gas to, next to, you most likely don't need to have some kind of crazy conversation with, or the guy that you're hanging out with at lunch. Just talk about the things you like. Talk about the things you love. Food, sports, movies, whatever. And maybe if, as a Christian, you show love and compassion, and they see that you are a Christian, maybe they'll be interested in talking about your faith. Take care. God bless. Love you guys. Bye.